Welcome all to this tutorial. Today I will primarily focus on the network manager. So there is a way of creating new interfaces, new connections would be a precise way of saying it. There's a way of creating new connections and interfaces as well via the network manager command line interface. Basically you type in nmcli and then you type in a rather lengthy command. You can see in the help menu that there are a lot of options here, but this is not something you want to do. I mean, it's fairly complicated, and if you are doing this during the time of the exam, you are bound to make errors here. I don't know that many people who use this command directly like this to create new connections. Rather, instead what they use is nmdui, and there you go. You get a terminal user interface where you can actually mess around with things. So you can set a system host name, you can activate a certain connection, or you can go ahead and edit the connection. So now we have emp0s3, but we can also play around with it and say, hey, we would like to add a new one. Oh, by the way, you press tab to move about, to switch from one menu to the next, and then you have arrows to move within a menu. So we can edit the current one, we can delete the current one, or we can add a new one. Let's go ahead and click on edit. You can see that we have a certain settings here. So we have the profile name, we have the device MAC address here. MAC address is the physical hardware address that is pretty much imprinted and burnt into every piece of every network card out there. Every and each network card has one, and they are unique. Down below you have addresses, where we have placed our own address, basically just some random address, 10.10.10/24, and then we didn't add a gateway. The gateway would be the point of exit where we could access the net, or some computer that has access to some other computer that has access to the internet, or a router, which is a more common case. Down below we have entered two separate DNS servers, so we can feel free to actually go into this file and to configure things here. So I'm just going to go ahead and press OK. We can also say add, and then we can add a new connection here. So look at the type of connections that we have here. Well, what do we really need? Okay, so I use a DSL connection, so I could actually create a DSL here. Well, I don't use it like this, but I think I used to use it a while ago, in this apartment anyway, where you had to type in username and password. Rarely anybody uses this today, but some people do. So you could basically configure your connection through this place by typing in the username and password that your internet service provider has given to you, and that would be fairly easy. So we have Ethernet, so you can just say show, and then you have some of the things here that you can type in as well. I'm just gonna scroll down to the bottom, as this is not really that interesting, primarily because it's rather easy to set up. I mean, you don't really need to set up most of these things. The primary thing is the username and password, without which you will not be able to log in. The rest is pretty much provided by your internet service provider as well. Anyway, now that you know how to edit, or well, just to delete it, you would just click on delete, and add would just create another one next to emp0s3, another connection. So to say, it would be fairly easy to create. Do try it to do it yourselves. If you fail, go ahead and just address me in the discussion section. Feel free to bombard me with questions. I am quite frequently around and more than happy to answer any inquiries that you might have. Anyway, let's go ahead and quit this. I'm just going to go ahead and clear the screen. So clear. And now I would like to talk a bit about some of the tools that we won't use them personally, but that can be of great use to you. You can download them from the net, or you can get them from the official repositories. It is not that difficult. You just need to use yum to search for them and to install them. No big deal. And in such a way you will be able to install them. But before, just one moment before we actually do that, there is another network manager configuration that you can go ahead and edit. There is network settings in the GUI, which is not the best way to go about things. Why? Well, you won't have GUI always, let's put it so. This is your current connection, so wired is 1000 megabits per second. Wow. IPv4 address, it's 10.10.10.0. IPv6 address, which is not that interesting to us, primarily because it is not that well used. Down below we have the hardware address and the 2 DNS servers below. So even here we can mess around with settings and have some fun. So basically you can just go ahead and click here, and then you can change certain information as well. Whatever you would like, you can pretty much change or add here pretty much the same configuration file as you have in your NMTY tool. Now we have some other network commands which we can go ahead and test out in order to confirm connections or something of a kind. First of all, we have ping. So if I type in ping google.com, it's going to say unknown host. Why will it say unknown host? Well, because my connection is messed up and I need to actually go ahead and change the IP settings there in order for this to actually work. So let's go ahead and delete those settings that we have set, delete those parameters that are there. So, emp0s3. First thing that we need to do is change the boot protocol to okay, changed it to none. Strange. Doesn't really matter. Maybe I've misconfigured it somewhere or something of a kind. No big deal. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this and say DHCP. Down below. Oh, where is it? We can also delete this line, as we don't really need it. And we don't really need these two servers because things will be picked up from our host anyway. Also, yeah, you see it actually changed some other things. It said prefix equals to 24, as that is an easier notation. Now I can leave the prefix because it's going to stay the same, but I will delete the IP address as I do not really require it. So let's go ahead and right quit. Oops. Right quit. System CTL restart network manager. Thank you very much. And you see I have a choice between my old and the new connection, so go ahead and choose the new one here. You can do the same thing in the TUI interface. It is very simple. The reason why I've showed you the terminal user interface, so you do not have to type in nmap CLI and then a long, very long command to even create an interface, nonetheless, to even create a connection, nonetheless something else to add some parameters or something of a kind. So that's not something that you want to be using. You can look into it if you wish, but there really is no justifiable reason not to use NMTUI, as it is a fantastic tool. Okay, so let's just go ahead and quit this. Anyway, let's go ahead and type in IPADDR show. Excellent, now we have that. Let's go ahead and clear the screen and do ping google.com. Excellent, so now we know that we have connection, and this is a foolproof way of confirming that you are actually connected to the internet. Well, maybe not absolutely foolproof, but this is a general way of people checking whether they are connected to the internet or not. They just ping a server somewhere and they see, can they actually reach a public server or not. For example, can I reach google.com? And Google is kind enough to allow pings, usually like probably around 70 to 80% cases servers will deny you pings routers will definitely deny you pings. Most of the well-configured routers anyway, and well-configured servers, but some of the servers that can withstand the bandwidth, like Google, they're kind enough to allow us to be able to ping them. And I generally use ping google.com in order to verify whether I'm connected to the net or not. So that is a very nice troubleshooting tool. But aside from that, you can actually test whether you can reach a certain network or not. So do you remember the network that we SSH'd to? So it's 192.168.1.101. And you see, I can actually get to that network. So I'm pinging it. I know that it's alive. I know that it's somewhere. It is replying to me, and it's functional. So I know now that the problem can either be that I haven't configured a firewall, or that the SSH is not configured properly. Once I configure the firewall, I know that the SSH is the problem. But how do you know that the port 80 or 22 or something of a kind? By the way, port 80 is the web server port, and port 443, that's the HTTPS for encrypted web traffic. How would you know that a port is open somewhere? Well, you can do it locally on the server itself by typing in by using one of the tools called netstat. So netstat and dash tool pen, and here listening ports will be listed. So look, I have a 22 port that is listening, and I have 3189, that's something else. I have literally no idea what is this, and some other things as well. But I only have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ports in total where I am listening for traffic. So you can see that the foreign address, state, and local address. So fairly simple logic, but you can also type in net stat grep TCP to view your pending connection, to view your connections. I have literally none, but here I can open up a browser, and that's bound to spawn some connections, right? Nope, apparently not. And there we go. So it says immediately that I have established connections to here and here and here. You can see that this is the HTTPS protocol is TCP, and it says established. Time wait usually means if that time wait expires, the connection will be dropped and declared invalid. But usually if it says time wait, it's gone, most likely, if there is that much of a delay. By the way, if you just type in netstat like this, you're gonna get all the sockets, and these are Unix system sockets. This is not something that we are interested in at the moment at all, because these are not connections to exterior servers. This is for inter-system communication. If you wanted to figure out who google.com was, if you had the domain name but you didn't have the IP address, the solution would be rather simple. You would just type in ns lookup google.com, and there you go. You have the addresses and you have the domains. Fairly simple, right? So it says google.com, and then it's giving us the addresses. So there are quite a few of them. But there's another command for DNS servers, so you can type in like dig google.com, and there you go. So if we just scroll upwards a little bit, we got the same answers, just so you know. It says that we do not have any errors. We've made one query and we got 8 answers. So all of these IP addresses are attached to this domain. Google has quite a few of them. I'm just using them as an example. You can do this on your local coffee shop website and just have a look which sort of IP addresses are bound. You're not doing anything illegal. All this information is very much public, and system admins use it on daily basis, just so you know. Anyway, we do have just a few more things to actually cover. You have trace route, which is basically, let me show you, trace route, but this is not really working anymore anyway, because most routers today have been configured to pass traffic through and not give any responses to any queries in regards to pings or trace routes or anything of a kind. They just allow everything to pass through, but they will not provide answers, and that is what these three dots mean. So that can be quite a big of a problem, because what you're using traceroute command is to actually see from which server to which server is your connection going, and where is it traveling. You can see my IP address somewhere in here. It doesn't really matter because it's a dynamic IP address. It will change the moment I reset my router, and I do that quite frequently as well, so it doesn't really matter if you saw my real IP address or not. Completely irrelevant. Anyway, I don't know, just a lot of people shy away from their IP addresses, don't really know why. They're dynamic anyway, they change from day to day, so it's really irrelevant. Anyway, these three dots, as I was saying, they just mean that the devices or the routers are not responding, but that our packet is actually passing through a device which is not communicating with us. It does not want to provide a reply to traceroute or to ping or to anything of a kind. So we do not know the IP address. We have no information on these servers of whatsoever, and that can be a bit problematic, as I said, because if you're trying to establish where the problem lies and you're unable to visit and you're unable to get a reply from certain servers, it can be very, very inconvenient. Now, aside from netstat, ping, traceroute, dig, and slookup, you also have Nmap. Nmap is a tool for scanning networks and probing them. Do not believe I have it installed. No, I do not, but you can just type in yum search Nmap. Not sure if I have to enable additional repositories for this or not. We'll see a bit later on when we keep on adding repositories. No, I actually do not. I can type in yum install Nmap yep, there we go. This will install Nmap, and Nmap is generally used for ill purposes or something of a kind, but there are an increasing amount of people who use the tool for the primary purpose for which the tool was designed, and that is for network admins, basically to be able to establish status of their services, to establish whether the services are vulnerable to certain vectors of attack, and most importantly of all, what people tend to use Nmap for is to verify are the ports open on a particular server. So if I type in Nmap 192.168.1.102.101 port 80, and oops, I made a mistake here, so give me double verbosity. Nmap, you should definitely educate yourselves more on that subject. You won't be required to know it in details for the Red Hat Certified System Administrator exam, so no worries there, but as an administrator in general, you should really know what Nmap is, how to use it, and you should get acquainted better with it. So I'm not sure did I actually scan the proper IP address. I typed in 101, and it says that the port 80 is filtered. That usually means that the port 80 is closed. It will either say closed, filtered, or open. So for example, if I was scanning my SSH server, not sure if the IP address for the SSH server has changed. If I was scanning my SSH server and if I said, hey, why don't I check port 22 and see what is going on there? Is port 22 open? Is it responsive? So if I figure out that port 22 is open, if I figure out that I can ping the server, I then know that I don't have a problem with the firewall, and you see it says 22 TCP open SSH. I know that's not a problem with the firewall then. I know that's not a problem of connectivity. Then only one choice remains, and that one choice is that the SSH protocol, or whatever protocol we are using, is actually misconfigured, or there is a bug there, so we know exactly where to look for that problem. Anyway, I'm gonna cut the tutorial here, and I will bid you all farewell until we see each other in the follow-up tutorials.